Baby, wouldn't it be nice if we both spoke the same language? I could understand your troubles and you know mine, and we could be together all the time if we both spoke the same language. Baby, no sería lindo si nos dos habláramos la misma lengua. Podría entender tus problemas y sabrías los míos.
Hello, and welcome to whoever you thought you were, you're a Jew. I'm glad that you tuned in, and I hope that the title caught your attention. I have to tell you at the beginning that what I mean when I say you're a Jew is not apparent from the title, and you're going to see that in fact it means something entirely different than what you might expect. This show has a subtitle, and the subtitle is The Ignored Truths of History. We're going to be talking about certain historical facts that are not hidden but are never discussed. The reasons why they're never discussed, I can't really tell you. I guess it has to do with the fact that people hate each other, because they're facts about brotherhood. By the way, before we proceed, I'm going to tell you my name again because it's a long name and I wrote it out for you. I'm Dr. Ken Biegeleisen. I'm a medical doctor, but I'm not particularly rich. People are accustomed to medical doctors being rich, and I'm kind of poor. I've really lost everything. The reason I lost everything is because I deliberately removed all the dishonesty, the deception, the deceit, and the treachery from my medical practice. And guess what happened? I went broke, and I went bankrupt. Of course, that kind of thing was known 2,500 years ago by Socrates. He said something which I'll paraphrase to the extent that the just man will have his eyes poked out, he'll be whipped and scourged, and then he'll be hung up on a pole to die. And that was about 500 years before Christ. And this is the way the world has been all along. Religious Jews and Christians say that the world is 6,000 years old. And let's face it, folks, for 6,000 years the world has been a whorehouse. And the problem is that you love money more than God. And that's true for almost everybody. It's even true for people who really hate it and who recognize it in themselves and would really like to do something about it. But it's very difficult to be the one just man in the middle of a global whorehouse. We've got some symbols here on the table. On the left side of your screen, excuse me. By the way, this is not a low-budget production. This is a no-budget production. So please excuse some of the video incongruities. On your left, we have our old friend, the golden calf, which has been the god of this world for about 3,000 years and probably well before. According to the Bible, the Jews stood on the slopes of Mount Sinai and swore to obey the law. And they were lying, and they've been lying ever since. The Christians like to think that they took over for the Jews, but they're not any better, and neither are the Muslims. But I'm here because I've discovered some facts about Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and about other religions as well. These facts can be reduced to this icon, which is on the right side of your screen. I'm not going to have time to explain it now, but what it shows is a cycle, and it shows Judaism, Christianity, and Islam as being part of a larger whole. So the ignored truths of history, our friends back here, relate to the fact that if you knew these things, that you would understand why it is that, contrary to what the Jews would like to have you believe, Christianity is not going to be proven false. Jesus is not going to be proven false. And contrary to what the Christians believe, Islam is not going to be proven false. And contrary to what the media spokespeople for Islam would have you believe, there's no commandment in the Koran to wipe out Judaism, and in fact Muhammad was about as close to being a Jew as anybody can be. So we're going to talk about all this and more. Now the question is, why is this show being done? And one of the answers is, I have to do it. There are things that I know and I can't keep silent about them. I guess the biggest problem of all is that we have bequeathed nothing whatsoever to our children. We're giving them a world that's poised on the verge of becoming a horrendous dictatorship, the likes of which have never been known, at least never been known on a global scale. In the past, when things got bad in a country, people would flee to another country. Like the Pilgrims came to America. When things get bad in America, where are you going to flee to? Russia? China? Or maybe you think that you're going to get on the Starship Enterprise and fly into outer space. You know, it's a funny thing. A lot of people seem to think that the problems on the world are insoluble because man's greed is too great and can't be overcome. And they think that the solution is to put themselves into a spaceship and get fired into the universe. Of course, they're going by Star Trek, which is a show designed to turn you into an idiot, to make you think that when you go into space, you're going to be the captain of a starship. And you're going to spend all your time having pleasurable. And every now and then you'll get into a pleasant sort of battle with an alien, and of course you'll win every time. But you know, if you're not the captain of a ship down here, you're not going to be the captain of a ship up there either. And if you're not having pleasurable sexual encounters down here with beautiful women at your fingertips, you're not going to have it up there either. In fact, what's gradually happening, year by year, is that in the United States, democracy is being replaced by dictatorship. The gold and silver of this nation has all been stolen and replaced with paper money, which has exactly as much value as the banks want it to have. Which means that if, for example, you're in a union family and you go on strike and shed your blood to get decent wages, those wages are going to be paid to you in worthless currency. And if the powers that be decide they want you to have less money, they'll just make the currency to be worth less. But we're going to be talking about that next week, so I'm not going to persist with that. Right now, I'd like to say a word to you about brotherhood. I've got a little sign here. Now, just bear with me while I get these things set up. Let's get rid of our golden calf for the moment. We don't need him. This sign has 3 statements on it. On the top it says, all men are brothers. We've all heard that before. That's what they teach you in school. They teach you to mouth it like a monkey. All men are brothers. And the minute you turn your head, they start to teach you to hate everybody. And don't tell me that hate is not on the increase, because if you tell me that, you're lying. America is more filled with hate now than it ever has in the history of this country. So it doesn't do any good to just say all men are brothers if you don't know why that's true. And that's why this show, whoever you thought you were, you're a Jew, is necessary. Because I'm going to show you how all men are brothers, and then after that you can make up your own mind as to what you want to do. The second saying is, love your neighbor as yourself. And the third saying is, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. All 3 of these sayings are considered to be forms of what we call nowadays the Golden Rule. It's amazing how widespread knowledge of the Golden Rule is. 500 years before Christ, Confucius said, the most important teaching of all is that which you do not want done to you, don't do it to your brother. 5 centuries later, Hillel, possibly the greatest Jewish commentator in history, said, that which you do not want done to you, don't do it to anyone else. That is the entire Jewish law. The rest is just a mere commentary. And shortly thereafter, Jesus Christ walked up on a hill and said the same thing. Everybody knows that all men are supposed to be brothers. And yet all men are not brothers, are they? All men hate each other. And right now, we're heading into an era of false brotherhood. And it is false brotherhood, and I'm not the only one who knows it. There's a thing out there called the New World Order. And if you don't know what it is, I'm astounded. There are millions of people who know what it is, and they hate it. but most of them think that nothing can be done about it. From my point of view, the worst offenders, or some of the worst offenders, are the Christians. Because the Christians, although they have many good ideas, believe that Jesus Christ is going to come down from the sky, and he's going to save them, and he's going to raise them up to great power and glory, because they attend the Christian church. But you know something? That's not going to happen. And I'll tell you why it's not going to happen. If you watching this program, if you're a Christian, you know that what I'm about to say is true. Jesus Christ said that if you're rotten to your brother, you're bad to me. If you love your brother, you love me. So we're back to our sayings again. All men are brothers. If you hate your brother in your heart and you want him dead, Jesus Christ is not going to come to you. Nor is any Mashiach going to come to the Jews. Nor is any Mahdi going to come to the Muslims. And nor is Buddha going to return to the Orient as long as men hate their brothers. If you want to learn how to love your brother, you're going to have to give something up. And we're not talking about the brotherhood of the New World Order. Let me say a few words to you about the New World Order in case you've never heard of it. But just in case you actually still don't know it, the world is very quickly being taken over by a bunch of bankers, greedy people, very evil people, declared enemies of God, enemies of religion, enemies of culture. Again, we're going to be talking about that next week. If you don't believe it, there are a lot of things I could tell you that might make you believe it. Some of you may know that you've got a president because in this country there's one political party, not two. All political candidates in this country are appointed. And after that, you waste your time and energy running around talking about Republican and Democrat. It's not like that. They're all appointed, and you get to choose between Tweedledee and Tweedledum. In any event, right now what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you two different means of attaining brotherhood. One is the United Nations method, and the other is the real method. The United Nations method is a banker's method because, in case you didn't know it, the UN was started by the Rockefeller family with their money, with their plan, and on their property. And the Rockefellers and their descendants, and their friends and their descendants have been running the United Nations since the day it started as a personal bank, and that's all the UN is a gigantic bank. And it's determined to wipe out all brotherhood as you know it and replace it with slavery to money. And when that comes about, you're going to be the slave, believe me, because they have all the money and you don't. I want to show you what I mean by brotherhood from the United Nations versus real brotherhood. In order to show you, we're going to have to go into the lab because we may make a little bit of a mess. Well, here we are in the lab, ready to do our little experiment. We have here some pieces of fruit, and I want to show you how the United Nations handles problems with brotherhood. So you could take one piece of fruit, looks like a peach, let's call this a Jew. Call this orange a Christian. Let's call this a colored person, call it whatever you want. Put them in the bowl, mix them up. They don't mix too well. So what do? You send in an army, like this, and you mix them together like this, you see? This is what the UN considers brotherhood. See? Take a Muslim, throw it in there. Brotherhood. This is Muslim, Jewish, Christian brotherhood according to the United Nations. There you go. Peace on earth, goodwill to men. I'll see you back outside. Well, here we are back in the studio to show you the results of our experiment. On your left, we've got the United Nations Plan for Brotherhood, represented by our friend the Golden Calf here. A bloody pulp. This is their idea of brotherhood. Crush everybody together, and if anybody resists, use military force. a banking dictatorship, one world under money. If it comes to that, make sure you've got it. You don't want to be caught without money in that world. But here's another concept of brotherhood. You could take those same fruits and you could cut them up into this lovely arrangement here. This is God's method for people to fit together, to work together, to complement each other. And in order to do that, you need to know why it is that all men are brothers. And that's what we're going to show you on this show in the weeks to come. Give me a moment to clean up, set up again, and I'll show you our schedule. Okay, we're ready to go. This is the schedule of subjects that we're going to be talking about in this series. Now I'm going to have to get way over here. There's not much room for me at this point. First week, that's next week. January 7th, we're going to talk about that New World Order. I'm going to tell you things about America that are really going to astonish you. You won't be the same person after you hear this show, I promise. The week after that, we're going to discuss a subject which is called here, History of Israel, Rise of Oriental Religion. And bear with me for a minute. I'll show you what I mean. I've really got to get over now. There we go. Hardly any room for me. This is a timeline of religious history. It runs from 1800 BC, the time of Abraham, and it goes up to 600 AD, the time of Muhammad. That's a span of 24 centuries. What's the chances that all the Oriental religions in the whole world, represented here by Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, Hinduism, at least Hinduism in its current form, Zoroastrianism and Jainism, what's the chances that all those religions would pop up in the same century? There's no chance. The chances are astronomically small. The fact that the whole of Oriental religion popped up in a single century is an extraordinary coincidence. Absolutely extraordinary. And it happened in the same century that the Jews, the diaspora, the Jews were kicked out of Israel and the Jewish nation came to an end. These things are no coincidence. And I'm going to tell you what it means on our second show. I think that's January 14th. Let's get the schedule back. There it is. Now, the week after that, we're going to do a subject called The Genetics of Jewishness, and it's subtitled, Where is David Now? Just about everybody who believes in God, whether Jew, Christian, Muslim, or Buddhist, believes that the Mashiach is coming. According to the Bible, he's from the line of David. And we're going to ask the question, where are the descendants of David now? I have a pretty good background in genetics. In fact, I've got a PhD. So I'm going to tell you something about the genetics of Jewishness which is going to surprise you. The week after that, we're going to talk about Jesus and how come he came as a Jewish Messiah and ended up being a savior to the Gentiles. The week after that, February 4th, we're going to talk about the early Christian church. And we're going to get into those councils at which Christian doctrine was determined. But we're not just going to discuss the prevailing views at those councils, because as it turns out, the views of those who didn't prevail, many of whom were excommunicated, did not simply disappear. They simply showed up later as Islam. And that's what we're going to talk about the week after. On February 11th, we're going to take a good long look at Muhammad and Islam in general. And you're going to find out it's nothing whatsoever like what you see on television. All that terrorism, all that nonsense, that's all lies. We're going to show you what Islam really is. Islam has always appealed to the dark races, so the week after that will be a good time to talk a little bit about race. And what you're going to find out is that you're not giving black people equality. They're taking it. And it's not the first time. We're going to tell you that black people not only are equal, but they've been better than you. And they've been better than you for centuries at a clip. We'll talk about that on February 18th. February 25th, our 8th talk, is going to be about God and enlightenment. Here in the West, they say that Buddha is a fraud. And in the East, they say, there's no God, there's only the enlightenment of Buddha. It took me about 5 years to figure out what the relationship is between God and enlightenment, and I'd like to share it with you because I don't think you're going to find it in any book. In fact, I don't think you're going to find it anywhere except here on public access television. So if you think the subject's important, tune in. And if you think it's not important, sharpen up your weapons, because there's some big wars down the road unless people figure each other out. Our 9th talk is going to be murder, birth control, abortion. That's March 3rd. We're going to really find out what the Bible says. A non-sectarian religious view of murder, birth control, and abortion. Now, I'm a doctor, so our 10th talk is going to be about health care. And I'm going to tell you things that are going to get you good and mad. You have no idea what's going on in your health care system. No idea. That's March 10th. If you're interested in health care, be sure to tune in. March 11th, we're going to talk about money. And I'm going to prove to you that you don't need money to make the world go round. You may think that money is God, and you may think that money is not God, but it's a necessary evil. And I'm going to prove to you that both those ideas are false. And finally, our 12th TV program on March 24th is going to be called The New World Order, wherein I'm going to show you how, taking all the principles that we've discussed, you can create a world order under God, so that you don't have to live under a financial dictatorship and pass into perpetual slavery. That's March 24th. Now bear with me for a moment, and we'll talk a little more. Now, in case you're thinking I'm pretty presumptuous in saying all these things about brotherhood, I thought you might like to find out where I got the ideas from. They're from straight out of the Bible. Take a look at this passage here from the book of Micha. The English call it Micah. It's Micah chapter 4, and it says, "In the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow into it." Now I want you to take a look at this phrase, last days, and I want you to know what that means. When the Bible says last days, if you're a Jew, that means the days of the Mashiach. If you're a Christian, that means the days when Jesus Christ will return. And if you're a Muslim, that means the time of the Mahdi. If you're a Buddhist, it means the time of the return of Buddha. And I want to tell you something. Every one of these religions has a scripture which says that that time is right now. The next verse reads, "And many nations shall come, and say, Come and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, and to the house of the God of Jacob. And he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the law shall go forth out of Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem." Now I want you to look at this word nations. In Hebrew, the word is amim, and that means people of different languages, different cultures, from different national origins, all coming to Jerusalem to learn the law. Jews and Christians and Muslims and even Buddhists, all in Jerusalem. It's an amazing thing. It's such an amazing thing that I'm going to sing it to you. Not that I want to turn this into a music show, but I want you to remember this verse. Again, this is from the book of Micah, chapter 4. And I'm going to sing this verse to you because you know what? I think that if I sing it to you, you'll remember. So that's what I'm going to do. "Many nations shall come and say,
Come and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, and to the house of the God of Jacob. And he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the Lord shall go forth out of Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem."
Now the next verse from Micah 4 is the most important one of all from some points of view. Look at what it says. "For all the people will walk, every one in the name of his God, and we will walk in the name of the Lord, our God, forever and ever." This is the King James Bible. Where King James saw the Hebrew name for God, he wrote the Lord out of respect for the Hebrew tradition of never pronouncing the name of God. Now I hope I won't go to hell for saying Jehovah. That's not really the correct pronunciation anyway, so maybe my soul will be saved. But I had to write this down because you have to understand what this verse is saying. It's saying that we, the Jewish people, will be walking in the name of Jehovah, but all these other nations will be coming to Jerusalem. But they're going to be walking in the name of their God. That means a Buddhist is going to come to Jerusalem and walk in the name of Buddha. What the hell is a Buddhist doing in Jerusalem? Well, you'll have to tune in for our Oriental show, which I think is 2 weeks from now, if you want to find out the answer to that. For the time being, I'm going to sing this verse to you because I really want you to remember this one.
For everyone will walk in the name of his God, and we will walk in the name of the Lord our God, forever and ever. And everyone will walk in the name of his God, and we will walk in the name of the Lord our God, forever and ever.
We're about out of time now. There were a few other things I wanted to say, but we won't have time. But I do want to say one more thing before I go. I want to tell you what my definition of Jew is, and the definition I'm going to be using for that term throughout this show. It comes from the book of Matthew, and it was spoken by Jesus. His disciples tapped him on the shoulder one day and said his brother, sister, and mother were there to see him. So he pointed to the people in the audience, some of whom had walked days just to hear his voice. And he said, "Whosoever shall do the will of my Father which is in heaven, the same as my brother, sister, and mother." And I looked at that and realized that's what a Jew is. If you count yourself among the haters of Jesus, that's okay for the time being. We can rewrite that verse. Whosoever shall do the will of our Father which is in heaven, the same is a Jew. And if you say that's not what a Jew is, I'd like you to tell me the definition of a Jew. Because if that's not what a Jew is, then I don't know what a Jew is. Well, that's about all the time we're going to have. Thank you very much for tuning in. And please tune in next week. If you don't know about the New World Order, you need to tune in next week and find out. Thank you once again. Thanks for tuning in to whoever you thought you were, you're a Jew. And I hope we'll see you next week. Bye.
Focus on the one thing that I'm sure of. Baby, wouldn't it be nice if we both spoke the same language? I could understand your troubles and you know mine, and we could be together all the time if we both spoke the same language. If we both spoke the same language. If we both spoke the same